Waar die wilgers welig spruit, doringboom sy skadu sprei, soos ons groei in kundigheid, mag U ons lei. Sien ons hoe hier lei met die hand, laat U sien rus oor ons land. Three strong streams united flow, Africa stands proud and tall. As we learn, we trust, we know God is in control. Bless us, O Lord, guide us with grace. May northwest be blessed always. Bless us, O Lord, sien ons hier. Ore Jehovah Semporena, sien ons, bless us, O Lord.
A very good evening to you all once again. Can you hear me? Good evening to you once again. I think that was the most beautiful way of starting the evening's proceedings, and I think we should do that for all our inaugural lectures. The Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research and Innovation, Professor Jeff Mpahlele, the Dean of Faculty of Engineering, Professor Liesel van Dijk, the Deputy Dean for Research and Innovation in the Faculty of Humanities, Professor Mirna Nel, directors, school directors and research directors from the faculty who are here. I'm not going to name your names. There are quite a number of you here, but we recognize you. Our students from the faculty and other faculties, colleagues and friends, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, very warm welcome to you all this evening. I'm most delighted that tonight we are celebrating Professor Matthys Human's professorial inaugural lecture, which is going to be in Afrikaans, and I'm sure those who don't follow Afrikaans like myself have the devices. It is indeed wonderful that you all came in numbers to support Prof. Human on this very important occasion in his career. It is also a moment that we want to particularly thank his family, his friends who have made sacrifices while he pursued his career. Obviously, many long nights, many travels to conferences and so on. So we really appreciate those efforts. This is also a particularly proud moment for the Faculty of Humanities whenever we have the opportunity to have another inaugural lecture from one of our senior academics. This year we had 9 altogether professorial inaugurations, so this is our 7th, so it's quite a bumper harvest for the faculty, so we really are quite excited about it. So without taking much time, I want to just take this opportunity to read out Professor Matthys' biography, which underscores why we are here today to celebrate him today. So Matthys Philippus, or Thys Human, was born in Johannesburg on October 22, 1971. He is the eldest son of Terry and Christian Human and has a younger sister, Elise. He matriculated in 1989 from high school, Florida, after he studied at the Rand Afrikaans University, otherwise known as RAU. There he obtained a BA degree in personnel management with distinction in 1994, a BA honors in human resource development in 1995, and a BA honors degree in Afrikaans with distinction in 1996. His MA dissertation, titled Carolina Ferrara and Landskap met Vroeger en Slang by Letty Viljoen, is in a post-colonial context, was awarded the RAU Chancellor's Medal in 1998. In 1999, he was appointed as a junior lecturer in the Department of Afrikaans at RAU, which later became the University of Johannesburg, as we all know, in 2004. This is where he worked until the end of 2012. Since 2013, he has been teaching as an associate professor of literature, focusing on prose and drama in the School of Languages at the Northwest University here on the Potchefstroom campus. In 2007, Thys completed a thesis titled, am I going to read that in Afrikaans? To give in words, Loss in the Over of Letty Viljoen and Ingrid Winterbach, under the supervision of Professor Willy Berger at UJ. In 2008, he was awarded the Elizabeth Ibas Bursary for postdoctoral studies in Utrecht in Netherlands by the South African Academy of Science and Arts. From 2011 to 2020, Matthys was the editor-in-chief of Stilet, the Journal of the Afrikaans Literature Association. He is NRF-rated and the editor of Die Beste Grens Verbi, Elsa Jube, E Haldanghang, that's quite complicated, which was published in 2022. Additionally, he is the author of articles in accredited academic journals, chapters in books, and frequently publishes reviews in newspapers such as Bild, Rapport, and Die Beggar. He is a member, and since April 2024, also the chairperson of the Literature Commission of the South African Academy of Science and Arts, and he also serves on the judging panels of the Art Cafe Fergie Awards and the Kijknet Rapport Book Prize, the Helgard Stein Award, and the UJ Prize for Translation. Matthys' research interests include genre studies, the narrative processing of trauma, the Bildungsroman Afrikaans drama, and the Uva of Ingrid Winterbach, Letty Filion. He is married to Charlene, and they have two sons, Philip, aged 19, and Eric, aged 17. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the short profile of Prof. Matthys. It's, of course, very long, but we have to keep it short for the purpose of this evening. So without much ado, I want to invite Prof. Matthys to come forward to get his academic dress and then to give us his lecture. Please, Prof. Matthys.
Thank you so much, Prof. Dumi. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Prof. Dumi welcomed a lot of you. I also like to extend a word of welcome. Die eerste ding wat ek vanaand wil sê is dat ek hierdie lesing opdra aan my ouers. Ek dra dit op aan my ma wat ek so graag hier sou wou hê, maar ek dra dit ook op aan my pa wat hier is en waaroor ek regtig verheug is. 'n Spesiale woord van verwelkoming ook aan Dirk en Elise. En Dirk en Elise nie nou langs mekaar nie. Dirk en Elise. Skus dat julle nie langs mekaar is.
Apologies for you not sitting next to each other. It's because I took that space. Apologies for that. Kirsten, the doctor, is my sister and brother-in-law,
En dan my werksfamilie.
as well as my working family from the subject group, Afrikaans, those sexy members from the subject group who assist me to be able to tackle much more than academia. Thanks so much for being here.
En dan wil
Really
ek
special.
ook graag 'n woord van
And also a
verwelkoming
word
rig
of welcome
aan elke
directed to
kollega,
every single
aan elke
colleague,
oud kollega,
to every former
aan
colleague,
kollegas van ander universiteite. En
colleagues
ek wil
coming
baie
from
graag
the
spesiaal
universities,
vir
and a special
Prof.
word of thanks
baie
to
dankie sê
Professor
dat hy
Philippus.
vandag hier is.
Thank you for being
Willie,
present here this
jy
evening.
het 'n besige week gehad en jy
You
het
had a
moeite
very
gedoen
busy week,
om
but
al die
put
pad
in
hier
the
na
effort
te ry.
to
Ek
travel
is
all the way
waardeer
here.
dit.
I do appreciate it,
En dis my groot voorreg
and it's a
dat jy
huge
hier is.
privilege for you to be
En
here.
dan wil ek ook welkom sê aan enigiemand
And
anders,
also to any other person,
studente, ander
be it
kollegas van ander
students,
universiteite,
colleagues from
en
other
natuurlik aan
universities,
almal wat
as
aanlyn
well as
ingeskakel
everybody
is. Ek
tuned
sien
in online.
nie enigiemand
I
aanlyn
don't see
nie.
anybody online,
Excuse,
right?
moet ek dit jammer.
Apologies.
Ek sien nou niemand aanlyn nie,
I can't see anybody online at the moment, but I need not also. Okay.
Ek is net so bang om verskyn.
I'm scared that everybody's suddenly going to appear. But if I omitted anybody, my apologies. But please also allow me the opportunity to beforehand conclude the thanks. I always tend to think that it's such an anticlimax to say thanks afterwards, because then it's sort of, it sounds like you do it because you must. Firstly, a word of thanks to everybody sacrificing on Friday evening to attend this inaugural lecture. For me, it's amazing in terms of the interest that you show through this. I certainly do not just assume it's a given. Thanks so much to Vallelum, who started this evening in an apt way with feeling. Thank you for kicking off the proceedings. Vallelum also told me, I can refer to them as Vallelum and Lanka, because they're members of the Red Wine Acoustics. He said that maybe opening and alcohol wouldn't be, reconcilable, but a special word of thanks. I really enjoyed it.
Also like to thank the executive
I'd also
dean,
like to
Prof.
thank the executive
Inaugural,
dean,
for the introduction.
English.
Thank you, Prof. And for your office for arranging this very special event. A sincere word of thanks, Prof. Bloom. Maar ook aan die skool vir tale.
Also a word of thanks to the School of Languages, my new director sitting there, keeping an eye on me. I'm going to avoid eye contact because I might get a bit
Maar baie
teary.
dankie dat die skool
Thanks
vir
so
tale
much
nog
for the
altyd
School
vir
of
my 'n
Languages
tuiste was
always
waar
being
ek
home for me.
toegelaat is om te doen waarvoor ek
I've
die
been
liefste
allowed
is. En
to
ek
do what I
verwys
love
beslis
most,
nou
and
na
I
administrasie.
definitely am not referring to doing
Dis
admin.
ongelukkig iets waarmee hulle my aan meer
This is something
maar
they
ons gaan
keep
niks
me busy
daaroor
with
sê.
that too, but I won't say much on that.
Ek wil by voorbaat baie
So,
dankie
in
sê vir
advance, a
Prof.
word
Phil
of
van
thanks to
Skalkwyk,
Professor Phil van
wat 'n paar
Skalkwyk,
woorde as
who
respondent aan
will
die
be saying
einde
a
gaan
few
spreek.
words as a respondent at the
Gelukkig
end.
weet ek dat
Now,
al sit
fortunately,
ek
I
die
do
pot
know that
heeltemal
even
mis,
I may miss the
dat
mark
Phil
completely,
uiteindelik alles
that
netjies
Phil
in kanne en
eventually
kruike sal kry.
will,
En
draw
hy sal selfs
everything
die
up
indruk
nicely
skep dat ek
and
dalk
perhaps
iets
even create
weer
the impression
kwytgeraak
that,
het.
I spoke coherently on the
Dan wil ek
topic.
sê dankie Daleen,
Thank you also,
vir jou aandeel
Dalian,
ten opsigte van die
Gray van
prosessie.
Peaches, for your
Toegang,
share in
die feit
the
dat jy gesê het
procession,
dat die
for
tossel
the
aan die
academic
agterkant
robes,
dra, ek was
for
bang met die tossel.
directing me about the
Maar
headdress.
ek wil graag
Also
vir
scared
twee
about wearing
mense
it
in
correctly,
besonderheid
but I'd like to highlight two people
En dit
specifically.
is eerstens vir
Namely,
Lucinda.
firstly, Lucinda.
Lucinda doen die werk
Lucinda
van 'n
does
span.
the work
Ek
of
weet waar
a
is
team.
Lucinda?
I'm not sure where you are. Lucinda,
Sy
where is
gewerk.
she? She's working, right?
So sy doen
So
absoluut die
she
werk van 'n span.
absolutely is doing
En
the
ek
job
dink
of a
nie
whole team.
hierdie
And
geleentheid
I
sou
don't think
moontlik
this
gewees
event
het
would have
sonder
been
haar.
possible without
Ek wil
Lucinda.
regtig vir haar
And I
uit my
really
hart
want to,
baie
from
dankie sê.
my heart,
En dan wil
thank
ek vir
her.
my vrou
Then I'd
Charlene
like to thank my wife, Charlene, who
ook
is here
baie
this
dankie
evening.
sê. As
I'd also like
Lucinda
to thank
die
her.
werk van 'n span doen,
Lucinda does
doen my
the
vrou
work of a
baie
team.
werk onder
My
span.
wife does a lot
Want
of
sy
work
het
under
natuurlik een van
stress
daardie wederhelftes
because
wat
she
sê,
has one of
"Ag,
those
doen jy
other
nou
halves
alles,
saying,
sorg
well,
dat
you
alles
do everything,
reg
make
is."
sure
En dan
everything's
vra ek
right.
elke 2
Then
minute,
every second half,
wat
I'm
dink
doing,
jy?
what are
Wat
you
plan
doing?
jy?
What are you thinking?
So vreeslik dankie dat jy dit doen.
Thanks so much for doing this work.
Dankie Engel.
Thank you, my angel. Honestly, you're
ook vir
an
die twee
angel.
manne langs
As
jou,
well as the two
wie ek so
men
einde
sitting next to you.
is.
You
En
know
wat
whom
vir
I'm
my
really proud of.
beloof het dat hulle nie
Also
vanaand
promised me that
grondig
this
verveeld
evening there won't be
sal wees.
thoroughly
Ek
bored.
weet nie of dit gaan
I'm not
gebeur
sure
nie,
if that's going to
maar
happen.
baie dankie julle.
Thank you so
Niks
much.
hiervan sou saak gemaak
None
het
of this
sonder
would have mattered without you.
ek is baie bly kan ek met julle
I'm
deel.
really glad that I'm
En
able to share
dan
this
Willem,
with
baie
you.
dankie.
Benjamin,
Dat jy
Thank you so
vanaand as
much
tolk
for
optree
acting as
en
an
dat jy
interpreter this
terwyl
evening.
ek nou hier
And
praat,
I'm busy
my
speaking
woorde
here,
in
that you
welklinkende
are able to
Engels omsit.
convert my words
Dit is
into
beslis
coherent
vanselfsprekend
words.
dat daar
It's
welklinkende
certainly not
Engelse
a given
woorde in my
that coherent
verskyn.
English words
Ek
come
waardeer
from my
jou
mouth, so I do
tyd en ek
appreciate
waardeer
your
jou
time
liefde vir
and
altyd.
I appreciate your
As ek
effort
enige iemand
tremendously.
voorgestel het, ek wil ook die
Skip
fotograwe
anybody.
baie
I'd also like
hartlik
to
bedank.
thank
En vir
heartily
die span
much
wat
good thanks to the
online
photographers
uitsending
as well
moontlik
as the team making the
dit sou baie
was
geweldig
possible.
verweldereerd gemaak het.
Would have bewildered me completely to be at the head of that, but I do appreciate it.
Maar as ek
Thanks so
iemand
much.
uitgelaat het, dan vra
And if I
ek
left somebody else,
dan
I
was dit
do
nie omdat ek
apologize.
wou nie, of omdat
It's not because I did not want to or because I didn't take proper notes, but simply because I'm more old, more grey, and a bit more slow. So thank you so much. Then, without saying anything more, I would next like to begin with my inaugural lecture. Now, a lecture sounds so weighty, but to a large extent I'll just be reading because, that is what us academics do best. We read. Now, as a prospective master's student, my literary fate, I think a great part of my research trajectory was sealed with a single paragraph. Now, that was the introductory paragraph of Ingrid Winterbach's debut novel, Klaaglied vir Koos, published in 1984 under the pseudonym Letty Viljoen. Now it says click. Now I should click. No, too many times. There you go. Outside, I kick the garden gate open from the inside so that it swings past its normal swing. And then I kicked it back from the other side so that its hinges broke. It's an old gate. At least 4 pairs of eyes are watching me. I push my child into the car, slam the door. I rev the car. Here, my story begins. An unnamed female narrator is at the point of leaving. She's full of trembling intentions and resorting to forceful actions. The neighbors are staring at her. The decrepit little gate is still swinging undisturbed by its squeaky hinges. The child has been bullied into the car, and she is revving the car until the petrol fumes hover. Beautiful, almost inciting, this unbridled anger, I immediately thought. So bad-tempered, so rebellious. But then, in the very next paragraph, you read, what use is kicking? The facts are undeniable facts. My husband had left us. He had taken up arms. My husband had left us to liberate the oppressed. I remained behind without the future distraction of a coital partner. And only a page or so later, so great was my sadness when I realized my husband had left us, that I had to lie on a hospital bed. It turned out to be the narrator's husband who had left house and hearth to go underground to free the oppressed. Her outward jury, only wishful thinking, or worse still, a routine action, the umpteenth trip to school or to the shop. Very little adventure, therefore, much more elegy. Although only Winterbach's debut novel carries the title Lamentation, most of her novels, as I tried to indicate in my thesis, to mourn in words, lost in the oeuvre of Letty Viljoen, Ingrid Winterbach, an elegiac approach. And apologize for that posing. It was specifically not nice. One could go so far as labeling her novels as so-called prose elegies or fiction elegies, by which varied elegiac conventions, which originally had their birth in poetry, are now explored and alternated in the form of the novel. Now, even though there's an admittance, there's very little academic consensus about what described as elegy or how it relates with the traditional elegy. The traditional elegy is usually described as a dirge. As topic, the death of a beloved or of a venerable person, or of a general feeling of pathos or mortality. It is generally assumed that the word elegy is derived from the Greek elegia, which means dirge or complaint. There's doubt about this derivation, since the Greeks knew elegies that were not dirges. Indeed, the subject was not crucial in the Greek elegy. but rather the metric pattern and the subject. All poems were called elegies if they were constructors in disticha, stanza pairs consisting of hexameters followed by pentameters. Sachs states that the word elegy is derived from the Greek elegy couplets, which are now these hexa and pentameters alternations, which were traditionally accompanied by a float, more specifically an oboe-like double pipe. The aulos. The aulos was related to the Phoenician gigris, flutes that were played to the god Adonis during funeral rituals, which was derived from an Egyptian wind instrument that was associated with sorrow, as well as its inventor Osiris, the god of death. Now, during the height of the elegy in Latin by poets like Gaius Gallus, Propertius, Tibullus, and Ovidius, the tone of this type of poetry, sometimes quite erotic, was mostly complaintive, melancholic, with the result that the focus gradually shifted from the construction of the elegy to the subject or tone thereof. Since especially the 16th century, the elegy is simply a poem wherein the death of a loved one is mourned, the so-called obituary poem, or wherein the transience of beauty and the passing of things are contemplated in a melancholic fashion. The lament. In her book, Beyond Consolation, Death, Sexuality and the Changing Shapes of Energy, Melissa Zeiger argues that specifically two theories underpin the literary study of the traditional elegy. Namely, the so-called anxiety of influence model, with reference to Harold Bloom's anxiety of influence, and the so-called work of mourning model, with reference to Freud's essay Mourning and Melancholia of 1917. I gladly quote Zeiger: while the first model conceives of elegy as a rivalrous attack on a dead but still overwhelming precursor figure, the second conceives the genre as a translation into literature of the grieving process following a death, leading to resignation or consolation. Now, with regard to the latter model, Sachs in the English elegy, studies in the genre from Spencer to Yeats, indicates that the traditional elegy by Freud's initial view of sorrow in this regard is marked by consoling substitution becoming the main goal. Now, according to Sachs, healthy elegiac mourning is characterized by a gradual withdrawal of the bereaved person's or elegy writer's libido, the emotional energy or vitality from the love object, and the eventual reinvestment thereof in a new object which serves as a substitute. Mourning comes to spontaneous and definite end when this, as according to Sachs, when the saddened person breaks this emotional commitment with the love object and invests the liberated libido in a new object. Comfort, be it explicitly or implicitly present, is therefore the basic driving force of the traditional elegy. Now, in the foreword to Poetry of Mourning, the modern elegy from Hardy to Heaney, Johann Ramazani argues that Sachs's model of healthy or successful bereavement is insufficient in understanding the 20th century and by implication also that of the 21st century elegy. As an alternative, he proposes that he argues that it tends not to achieve but to resist consolation, not to override but to sustain anger, not to heal but to reopen the wounds of loss. He then notes that most modern writers revive the elegy, not by slavely following traditional conventions thereof, but by purposefully breaking the norms and challenging the boundaries thereof, by modern elegy writers uniting the elegiac with the anti-elegiac, the traditional psychology, structure, and figurative language of the genre is both appropriated and undermined in their work. In this regard, these writers especially oppose the psychological trend of the genre, equating bereavement with consolation. Different from their literary predecessors, for its initial views regarding normal bereavement, these writers, as well as themselves and the deceased, attack both their own work and the elegiac tradition. Ramazani summarizes the difference between traditional and modern elegy as follows.
If the traditional elegy
was an art of saving, the modern elegy is what Elizabeth Bishop calls an art of losing. Instead of resurrecting the dead in some substitute, instead of curing themselves through displacement, modern elegists practice losing father, losing foster, so that the one art of the modern elegy is not transcendence or redemption of loss, but immersion in it. So while Ramazani, in his discussing of modern elegies, mainly refers to poetry, John Vickery, in his book The Prose Elegy, an exploration of modern British and American fiction, notes the modern elegy does not only entail the bereavement with regard to the loss of an individual in the form of a poem, but that it also often places the focus on other forms of loss in prose form.
The 20th century gradually transformed the elegy into a focus of the diversity of losses occurring in human life and in shaping of new or different elegiac responses to the death of the individual. The modern elegy added most of the forms of personal, intellectual and cultural loss suffered by mankind. As far as the most important differences are concerned between the traditional elegy in stanza form and the modern elegy in prose form, Vickery points to a much clearer mindset of hesitation, challenging of boundaries, exploring of themes and assumptions which were previously only marginally brought into context with the elegy. In modern elegy, there are general less lamentation and much more open confrontation with death and with loss. A nostalgic longing that is often associated with the traditional elegy is increasingly subdued with irony and skepticism. In short, the modern elegists begin more or less consciously to entertain an intensely sobering likelihood. For them, sorrow is an inherent and enduring component of life, rather than the fleeting and intermittent response it was treated as being in the traditional elegy. A dominant attitude emerges of ironic, skeptical uncertainty as to whether a viable resolution of the trauma of loss is possible. Now, since Smythe is of the opinion that the name elegiac fiction does not consider all the formal and linguistic characteristics of prose fiction within an elegiac framework, she instead proposes the concept prose elegy, hyphenated, or fiction elegy, also hyphenated, as a name for this type of elegy, since it places an equal amount of emphasis on the form, fiction and elegy, as well as content, sorrow, bereavement. Now, when literary theoretical research on prose elegy is considered, there is a name of a writer that repeatedly comes up. It pops up in article after article, namely that of the British modernist
Virginia Woolf.
moontlike en durf
A
ek sê
possible and dare I say
waarskynlike
likely
hiervoor
reason for
is dat
this
Woolf
is
self
that
'n
Woolf herself
duidelike
suggests a
skakel
clear
tussen haar
link
romans
between
en die
her
elegie
novels
begin
and the elegy.
suggereer. Terwyl Woolf besig was met die
While
skryf
Woolf
van
was
To the
busy writing To
Lighthouse,
the Lighthouse,
het sy in 'n
Woolf,
dagboek
in a
inskrywing
journal
op
entry on
Saterdag
Saturday,
27
June
Junie
1925,
1925 doelbewus besin oor
contemplated
die
an
gepaste
apt
benaming
name for
vir
her
die
prose.
prosa wat sy skryf. Sy skryf, I have
She
an
writes, I
idea
have
that
an
I
idea
will
that
invent
I will
a
invent
new
a new
name
name
for my
for my
books to
books
supplant
to supplant
novel.
novel.
A
A
new
new,
by
space
Virginia Woolf.
by Virginia
what?
Woolf. But
Elegy?
what? Elegy?
Sonder om Woolf en Winterbach se
Without
skryfwerk
necessarily
noodwendig aan
equating the
mekaar
writing of
gelyk
Woolf
te
with that
stel
of Winterbach,
of die een of ander
or
diep
suggesting some
en
type of
ingewikkelde
secret intellectual
interpretation tussen
between
hulle
their
werk
novels.
hierdeur wil ek as
I
'n tipe
would like,
gedagte
as a type of
eksperiment
a
in
thought
die res van die
experiment in
lesing
the
nade
remainder of the
of
address,
en ook
contemplate
watter
whether
mate
openly address death and bereavement, and rather willfully persist with a deferred, concealed, and thwarted elegiac impulse that only leads to partial reconcilement.
Soos Andrew Ball tereg
As
aandui,
Andrew Ball
slaag
correctly
Wolf
indicates,
en
Wolf,
beweer
die
ook
Winterbach
Ingrid
too,
Winterbach
succeeds
daarin
in this.
to invigorate
To
and
invigorate
reform the
and reform
elegiac tradition
the
by working
elegiac
through
tradition
the ethical
by
existential
working through the
problem of
ethico-existential
modern
problem
mourning.
of modern mourning.
That is,
That
in the
is,
attempt to find a space of
in the
grief
attempt to find
that
a
is
space
all
of
one's
grief that is
own,
all one's
a
own,
position in which
a
one
position in
comports
which one
oneself
comforts
towards
oneself towards death authentically.
Net soos die van Wolf,
Just like
behoort
those
Winterbach
of
se
Wolf,
romans
Winterbach's
volgens my beskou te
novels
word
should
as
rather be seen as counter
in die opsig dat
elegies,
hulle
in the sense
weerstand
that they
bied
resist
teen oorgelewerde
passed on
konvensies
conventions
en
and
tot die
lead to the
totstandkoming
forming
van
of
nuwe
new
elegiese
elegiac forms
aanleiding gee, wat 'n
that are
groter
more
etiese verantwoordelikheid
responsible
teenoor
toward
die
and
ander
more
oor wie
ethically
getree
aware
word.
of the other who is
Beide
being mourned.
skrywers, dis nou
Both
Wolf en
writers,
Winterbach,
both Wolf
herdefinieer
and Winterbach
treurwerk
redefine
eerder
mourning
as 'n
rather as a
durende
continuous
ervaring.
experience,
'n
an
onophoudelike of
incessant
'n
or
eindelose
infinite
proses wat
process
volgens daar
whereby a
beskeiding
separation
tussen
takes
die
place
lewendes en
between
die
the
dooies
living and the deceased
probeer maak
without
sonder dat die
commitments
verbintenisse tussen
between
hulle
them being
heeltemal
completely broken.
verbreek word. Nou volgens Angela Leighton bepaal die
According
spesifieke
to Angela
inhoud van die
Leighton, the
moderne
specific
prosa
content
elegie
of a modern prose elegy to a large extent
Sy
determines
praat van
the form
prosa
thereof.
elegie as 'n
She speaks
genre
of prose
waarin die
elegy
tema
as a
die
genre
vorm
wherein the
bepaal.
theme determines
Nou sien dat
the
almal se
form.
verdriet
Now,
verskillend is,
since
kan 'n
everybody's
prosa elegie
grief
beskou
differs,
word as
prose
'n
elegy cannot be
vorm
regarded as a
wat net wag
predetermined
om met
form,
inhoud
just
gevul te
waiting to be
word.
filled with
Die
content.
vorm daarvan
The form
word in groot
thereof
mate
is
deur die
largely
elegiese
determined
projek
by the
van die
project of
elegieskrywer
the elegy writer.
Nou, Winterbach se
Now,
debuutnovelle
Winterbach's debut
Klaaglied
novel,
Verkoos word baie
Lamentation for
pertinent as 'n
Koos, is
lamentasie
pertinently
of
presented as a
treursang
lamentation or dirge in prose form, as I
By wyse van die
mentioned before.
herhaling van die
Now,
incantasie my
through the
man,
repeated
my
use of the
man, my
inward
man,
slanting
word die verdwene
apostrophe, the
geliefde as het
incantation
ware
my man,
voor die oë
it is
van die
as
leser
if the
tot lewe
deceased
gewek.
beloved is
Teen
resurrected
laas van
for
die
the eye of the
verteller
reader by
meer
the
ken.
narrator.
Wyk egter van die
The
drie
story
fase
penned
struktuur
by
van
the narrator,
tradisionele
however,
elegie
deviates
af,
from the
naamlik
three-phase structure that
bekendstelling aan die
characterizes the traditional
verlieservaring,
elegy,
die
namely
verwoording van
introducing the
verdriet
experience
en
of loss,
uiteindelike
expression of
berusting
grief,
deur
and
middel van
eventual peace with the
vertroosting.
loss through
Sy
consolement.
skryf ook voor
He was the
uiteindelik
man who
'n
eventually
verskriklike aanval
ends
van
up,
frostbite vir kanker verruil.
swapping a frostbite attack, swapping frostbite for pity the cost for him. Do you see this as a continuation of the events in Philippus' plan? It's rather a type of an alternative universe, like in those Marvel and DC comics. That so grasped the imaginations of Bina Fonny and Chao Ching Yang in this novel. One more of the most striking manners in which Winterbach's prose elegies differ from traditional ones has to do with the relationship that exists between the living and the dead in her novels.
In meeste gevalle
loved ones. On the contrary, possible in breaking all ties with the dead and to distance themselves from them. The character's bereavement is rather executed with the aim of winning back the dead in some way or the other, albeit only metaphorically, a ritual that is performed as a continuing dialogue and a commitment with the deceased. Think, for example, of Leidstein, who in Nuggie tried to call back his dead spouse from the hereafter through a concoction that he got hold of by Wilkie, or of Grant Tron, whose obsessive attempts at finding for the purpose of consulting the talking head, or Katrina's brother, again Don, who in Voor Ouer Pelgrimberg focuses his efforts to gain access to the space of the forefathers, when on occasion he remarks to Katrina, the dead speak a new language. It made her get goosebumps from head to toe. As part of her elegy, also writes novels with which she and beautifully subversively links onto established elegiac forms that have been identified in the work of other writers, but always for example, Hannah still retained conventions of the epistolary elegy are used. Hannah tries to process the loss of a father who died at a young age in letters to her mute brother. My dear brother, we will research for lost. ask them to stop for a
Hy
moment.
klim van sy perd
He
af,
climbs
een
off his
keer
horse,
haar dun
leans
slank
against her
arm
thin side,
en huil
and cries
soos hy nooit
like never
van
before.
tevore gehuil het. Hy huil oor
Cries
sy
over his
goeie
dead
vrou,
wife, who,
wat hy deur sy
because of his
dwaasheid vir
foolishness,
ewig na die
is forever
skaduryk
banned
verbann het.
to the
Hy
shadow
huil oor
world.
sy vriend Ben,
He cries
wat
over
so
his
swaar
friend Ben,
getref
who has
is.
been
Hy
afflicted
huil
so
oor die
badly. He
kinders.
cries over the
Sy eie
children, his
vroeggestorwe
own child
kind, oor
who
wie hy
had died,
nooit voldoende gehou het, oor die
who
groter
hasn't
kind,
sufficiently
wat
mourned
met haar
over
vrou
the
geword,
older
en
child
oor die ou
who
klein
wanted to
Hy huil
become a
oor die
woman,
lot van sy
and
kampgenoot.
about the younger
Hy
one.
huil
He's
bitter
crying for
oor
his
Anna,
peers
omdat hulle
and
nie
bitterly over
toegestaan is
Anna,
om mekaar lief te
having
hê.
not been afforded
Hy
the
huil
chance to
omdat
love
hulle
each other.
lewens hierna
He cries
nooit
because
weer
their lives will
dieselfde
never
sal
be the
wees.
same again. He stood like that time against the horse's patient side before lifting his head,
Trane met sy mou van
wipes
sy
the tears
gesig
with his
afneem,
sleeve,
en vir Ben
and points to Ben
dat hulle
that
verder
they are to carry on. The
kan
book of
weer
Tufel
met vrug gelees word
Toeverlaat, the
as 'n
book of Chance and
eiesoortige
Refuge, can
voorbeeld
be
van die
fruitfully
sogenaamde
read as a unique
elegiese
example
romanse.
of the so-called
Dis 'n term wat
elegiac
Braffy
novel,
in sy artikel
a
met
term
dieselfde
coined by
Engelse
Braffy in
titel,
his article with the
elegiac
same
romance,
name,
gemeend
the
het om te
elegiac
verwys
romance,
na 'n elegiese roman
to
waarin
refer
die
to an
verteller,
elegiac novel
in hierdie
wherein the
geval
I
Helena
narrator,
Verboom,
in this
die
case
eerste
Helena
aktverteller
Verboom,
na
sheds
Klaas
light
Verboom,
retrospectively
die
on the
dood
death
van 'n
of a
prominente
prominent
figuur
figure
wat 'n
played by a
deurslaggewende rol
specific
in haar lewe
role,
gespeel
who
het.
played a specific
Prominente.
role in the life
En
of
hier is dan
Tapper
die skatryk
And
aanvallige
here's the
Theo
filthy,
Verwy,
rich,
vanuit
attractive
'n
Theo Verwy,
agtergrondperspektief belig.
which is a quasi-biographical story, where the I narrator's hero-worship for and to the deceased is clearly
Benevens boekstawing van
apart from
'n
a dramatic death at the end of the novel, Allah Etienne novel also investigates especially the destructive influence that death has on the art. Interesting, reading the novel, that Theo's death indeed has like a whole Theo Verwijs assisted in October and found dead was the one who found him at Theo's death. on the bottom. Now, whether, and I can you can be rest assured that I'm slowly approaching the end, and whether most of the box challenge based on substance that ever be possible of comfort. She does write modern elegies, still retain certain elements of consolement, not the comfort of substitution, but rather that of humour and of laughing. Despite the fact that the novel characters, Blemmering mostly, do not succeed in filling all of their holes and gaps, and in doing so experiencing a sense of wholeness and fulfillment, the novel does not end without any sense of comfort, because in the final chapter, the epilogue, Hannah is able to speak her. She remembers all the past. Underneath the ground in this subterranean space, and the conversation there under the ground. Hannah found to hear her brother. It's so dark here. She turns. Says something again. He's laughing. She hears him babbling. She can hardly hear. He tries turning her ear again. Laughing, she asks. She does not know if her voice is still making sense. Silence. He laughs. Softly. Laughs. Household. When their words become unclear and insufficient, when language finally fails them and silence becomes tangible, first Hannah's brother and then she herself start to laugh. Also become aware of cousin Christian and the abstract author and our narrator who is announced for the first time in the novel, who laughs along. Who is laughing? Cousin Christian is laughing along. Laughing with us. Are you laughing? I ask. And remember that he laughed like a lion. Yes, it's our cousin, and he's laughing with us. The existential implications of this is clear. Life is emptiness, it's longing, and life is separation. All that one can do in the face of senselessness and the lack of future prospects is to laugh in the face of loss and of grief. Laughter represents a degree of relativizing comfort. According to Kundera, laughter entails the recognizing of the intoxicating relativity of human things, a strange pleasure that comes from the certainty that there is no certainty. And Matthys ties in with this view when he states, and he says much in this, and I'll limit myself to a part of what Matthys says here, but come on, Matthys, play along. Laughter deranges, shakes us out of our familiar notions, and makes us look at the world in a completely new way, making or showing the familiar absurd. When we laugh about the world or about ourselves, when another person makes us laugh, we for a moment experience the liberating emptiness of our not knowing. Right away we experience our fundamental freedom. The laughter creates a vast open space. A place of communion where the I and the you dissolve into one. We have become two conspirators laying bare the absurdity, the falseness, the hypocrisy, the stupidness, the lack of honesty, and in most of our mental constructions, laughter tends the absolute and shows us the relative. Laughter makes us one, and it reunites. Now, with Winternacht is so much laugh about it. Sometimes it's a laugh of recognition. Sometimes it's an almost surrealistic exuberant laugh, like in the following Jake portraits in the Arms Park of living beings. the claim of living beings. By here you're allowed to
Ollie is
laugh, right?
gebore in
Ollie was
Provinsstad.
born in
Laat
Provinsstad.
voordat hy na
After
landbou
school, he
college
went to
in
an
Pretoria.
agricultural
Hy wil
college in
graag
Pretoria.
boer.
He wanted to do
Sy
farm.
oupa het 'n plaas in die
His
Hougron
granddad
Sitraat,
had a
dis
farm
klip
in the
in die
Helbron
Wilgerrivier.
district
Die
between the
afgelope
Klip and
maand het
Volga
Ollie
rivers.
steekpyn
The
in
past
sy
couple of months
bloedstaat
he
wanneer hy loop,
has
maar hy
pains
kan
in
ook
his
nie die hele tyd
post
sit
state when he walks, but
of
he
stil
can't
staan.
just stand
Soms
still
is
the
hy
whole time.
duisend
Sometimes
wanneer
it feels as if the whole day is tiny hair at the back of his
dit
tongue.
help as hy
It
vleis
helps when he eats.
Hy het nie sy pa
It's his fault. Ali. And he likes a meat pot. He loves good Darren, and he's mad about over Patricia Lewis. Sometimes he has a buggy sex with chicken. He likes big dams at your sunsets. The light is a hell of a mouse, especially if there are large things on the opposing. On the last one. Had bandy legs and she was a blonde. But she was also jolly, but she had a stroke, I suppose, because she was upset about the dad and the PE teacher. After that, she could, but had to be cared for by his dad. She was in a wheelchair. She had thin legs and sometimes a ribbon. And then one Christmas,
ander kere is dit melancholiese,
it is slightly melancholic laughter, voiced back and tragicomic, as if you don't know whether to laugh or to cry.
En dit kom uit onrus
This
uit
comes from
Steynsville.
onrus at
Toe Sarah sy ma
Steynsville, and
weggelei
Sarah
brand,
and
toe in die
his
jare wat
one
later
went to
is
Lady
Bena se
Brunt,
pa
and a
dood.
year so later Bena's dad was
Bena
shot
het
dead in the
onder die
garage.
bank gelê, toe
Bena
hy
was lying
gestem
under
in
the car in the
kantoor,
morning when he heard
toe
voices in
skote,
the office,
toe
then
geskree.
heard shots,
Hy kon
then
die
heard
tekkies sien
shouting.
van
You
mense
could
wat
see
weghardloop.
tackies of
Hy
people
kon
running away.
lank geskrik.
He was
Toe
paralyzed
kry hy
with
dit reg
fright.
om oor die
Bena
kar uit te
managed to
kry,
crawl out from
sy
under the
bene
car.
kon hom skaars dra.
His legs
Hy
could
het
hardly
die
barely carry his weight. He wiped the grease on his overalls. The other two mechanics were already with his father in the office. One of the calendar girls was shot between the legs. Another one shot in the boob. He wasn't sure if this was by accident. His dad was lying on the ground, Bena staring at a large pool of blood under his head. One mechanic kneeling next to his dad with the wrist of Bena's dad in his hands. He looks at Bena. His dad also looks at Bena. Bena looks at his dad, but he cannot move. Then his dad's eyes glazed over and blood foam came out of his mouth. His hand moved once more, slightly, and then he remained still. The laugh is never exactly the same, but always beautifully unpredictable, and mostly especially. So many other examples, but I'll limit myself to this. Mostly, this is especially anointing, despite all the mourning. To summarize, here I'm eventually at my conclusion. Ingrid Winterbach's prose elegies can therefore be regarded as so-called ritualistic structures, by means of which characters perform and enact their mourning to a large extent. It is, however, also a medium through which continued interaction between the living and the deceased can take place. It would seem as if Winterbach lends her ears, like one of the characters from her novel Benny Potgieter in Onrus op Steynshoop, to the singer Nick Cave, who sings, "Dig, Lazarus, dig." Because the act of exhumation, and I indeed use the Anglicism, which is the digging up of loved ones and the reviving of the past, most definitely does not come to a spontaneous and comforting end with Winterbach within the frame of a single novel, even though the object of love may be in some instances found and recovered. It's much rather a ritual which, anew, therefore repeatedly takes place. The object continually uncovered and recovered in a never-ending cycle of mourning, a never-ending interaction between the living and the dead. that cocky guy with a fringe, Professor Philippus, met in a bookshop shortly after the appearance of Die Dief of Tate. He knowingly claimed that Ingrid van der Bach has been, for the recent few years, has been writing the same novel over and over again, therefore badly missed the mark. Ingrid van der Bach is not writing the same novel again and again, but she's rather continuing an uninterrupted marital project wherein loss and grief are often legitimately contemplated in new and surprising ways in an attempt to act in an ethically responsible way towards deceased loved one. Not just the living, but also to the deceased, especially with van der Bach. There is, in the words of Lou Marie Kruger, a sense of the gradual intimacy of grief that, according to grief, can excellently be expressed through the elegy. It tells a ritualistic dirge about the loss of people and things, but also a recognition of human mortality and the undeniable transience of time. It is an extremely careful and self-reflective contemplation of the lost love object, the relationship between the elegy writer and the deceased, as well as that which is experienced and lost by the elegy writer. It is about the relationship between the one who mourns and the one being mourned. It's about the person or the thing that is lost, but also about the parts of ourselves. It's one of exploring us. It's about the hurt, the wound. It's about the howl of grief that is making the feeling alive, though the person remains dead. An elegy is an attempt at intimacy when intimacy in the real world has been lost. Now, this intimacy is not knowing or not knowing necessarily, but rather is about the surrendering of oneself to the idea of not knowing, of never completely knowing, of always being in waiting, always wondering, always going slightly mad. And I cannot think of a better writer that I would rather go slightly mad with than Ingrid van der Bach.
Distinguished functionaries, colleagues, thesis friends, and family. It is indeed an exceptional honor to provide a response to Prof. Thesis' inaugural lecture. A familiar experience for those who work in E9 on the Potchefstroom campus is hearing Prof. Thesis busy teaching somewhere in the building. I've always experienced this as something reassuring, as it says that the business of teaching is carrying on and that it is in very capable hands. Prof. Thesis is indeed a respected and much loved educator, having inspired several cohorts of undergraduate and postgraduate students with his vast knowledge of Afrikaans prose and drama and his unrivaled enthusiasm. He is constructive and consistently non-polemical. Nowadays, that is quite refreshing. Also in his many other roles as critic, reviewer, adjudicator, speaker, and mentor, generously sharing what he knows and feels about literature. Prof. Thesis is like a seasoned tour guide in a great cathedral. Not telling us what to think, he points here and there, drawing our attention to what might have escaped us. He provides facts and context, explains ways. Indeed, His enthusiasm plays out in sober and sobering ways, as you have heard this evening. Two important strands in his thoughtfully weaved argument on how broader literary developments in modern elegiac literature manifest in Ingrid Winterbach's prose are the following. Firstly, the move away from reactionary, prostrating lamentation, the description of which reminded me of the traditional English poem, perhaps some of you have heard it, Messalina's Monkey. Ay me, alas, hey ho, thus doth Messalina go, up and down the house a-crying, and so forth, and so forth. It was beautifully set to music by Benjamin Britten, among others. As Prof. Matthys has demonstrated, there are indications of progression toward a more considered confrontation with death and loss as an enduring part of life. And secondly, a rejection of unproblematic notions of solace and closure and too readily accepting substitutes or replacements for what was lost or what is lost, but rather engaging with grief in a sustained, inconsolable, and ritualistic way which does not exclude humor. Prof. Matthys' scholarly endeavor in this lecture included not only a critical survey of theoretical frameworks relating to elegy, but also the development or the ostensible lack of development in Winterbach's work. And he impressively covered her entire prose oeuvre in this regard. I believe it was almost everything. He also discussed the book van Toeval en Toeverlaat, translated as the Book of Happenstance, a highlight of Winterbach's work. I would like to linger a bit longer at this novel. Its opening words introduce a pivotal season of change in Helena Verbloem's life that commences with the death of Theo Verwey, as Matthys indicated. It is a season of strange associations and memories, revolving around the loss through theft of Helena's collection of seashells, which connects her with all her other losses, her parents, her sister, her close friends of yesteryear, and her younger self. Helena repeatedly in memory recalls the lost shells in detailed and ritualistically repetitive sentences and phrases. A seemingly insignificant exchange between Helena and her quirky friend Sof on the topic of the stolen shells is beautifully consistent with Prof. Matthys' propositions regarding the way in which loss is negotiated in Winterbach's prose. In my own translation, this exchange, I was wondering, says Sof, clearing her throat carefully, if it wouldn't help if you think that beauty cannot be possessed, that one actually is only a temporary custodian of it. You can almost hear the violins playing. Will it not help with the loss of the shells? She, Helena, Sof coughs slightly. And then Helena thinks for a while. No, I reply, no, it doesn't help me to think about it like that. In that case, Sof says, I wonder if we shouldn't go and buy you new shells somewhere. The new shells, however, once they arrive, do not satisfy Helena at all. She turns away from them, and when after a deep sleep she is again able to look at them, we read, I behold them with displeasure, with an unrelenting gaze. It is striking and part of both the touching and humorous sides of Die Boek van Toeval en Toeverlaat that Helena never really elicits an adequately compassionate response to her nagging references to the loss of her shells, whereby the traditional trope of prostrating grief is cleverly activated. Typical reactions from other characters are the following. The clicking sound with the tongue that Constable Modesani makes as he surveys the scene of the disaster where the shells got stolen. Sof's proposal, accompanied by the usual little cough, that the thief should have his hand cut off in public. and the later repeated yes of Constable Modesani and fuck of Sof as the search for the lost shells unfolds. The lack of a truly comforting response from those around her also serves the purpose of humorously relativizing Helena's grief while feeding into or supporting her inconsolable state. Thijs, congratulations on this milestone in your career. May you continue to derive and share so much readerly joys. Thank you. Thank you.
I couldn't agree more with Prof. Phil. I think this was a performance par excellence. It was more than a presentation. I really felt moved, and I wish I can be in the class of Prof. Days to really enjoy him to the fullest. Professor Matthys Human, who is our VIP this evening, Professor Dumi Moyo, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Humanities, Prof. Liesel van Dijk, who has joined us, the Executive Dean of Faculty of Engineering, the Deputy Dean of the Faculty of Humanities, Prof. Myrna, all directors present, staff, lovely family and friends of Prof. Human, esteemed guests, Northwest University greetings to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to present a congratulatory message and certificate of achievement to Prof. Human on this very important day of his inauguration into professorship. I congratulate you, Prof. Human, on this landmark scholarly achievement. It is a proud and joyful moment worth celebrating in the presence of your loved ones, colleagues and collaborators at Northwest University, in South Africa, and elsewhere. I wish to say well done and roll out the red carpet to welcome you to the new ranks, professorial ranks, as you join the distinguished community of university's most senior academics. Inauguration into professorial ranks is such an auspicious occasion. It marks the significant milestone in the career trajectory of any academic, and is certainly laden with rights and privileges, which I hope you will enjoy to the fullest. In your inaugural lecture, it is clear that it reflects your lifetime scholarly work and confirms that it takes many years, if not decades, of dedication and perseverance to attain the status of full professor. And it is by no means everything about your academic life. I think what you shared with us this evening is just tip of the iceberg, but certainly the most important aspect of your scholarly work. Personally, I always look forward to inaugural lectures because they take me away from the boring paper shuffling that I do every day. This is the only time I can really capacitate myself with new knowledge. Because I don't have time to visit the library as often as I want. And I must say, Prof. Human, I've learned a lot from your lecture, and certainly the message has arrived, and I hope all of us will make use of this insightful lecture that you shared with us this evening. I like to believe that it was riveting, insightful, and thought-provoking presentation, but very dramatic as well. It clearly demonstrates the impact of your scholarly activities. And in fact, it is my first time that I joined Faculty of Humanities for the inauguration. So I've learned a lot, Prof. Dumi, and I'm sure next year, when there is invitation for inaugural lectures, I'll go through the list of Faculty of Humanities to make sure that I come back, because I've listened to something very different, not just science, and I'm sure Prof. Liesel will agree with me that this is something interesting from our domains of research. This celebration is also an opportunity to pay tribute to people who are so dear in our lives. Those who are pillars of strength and source of inspiration. These are none other than our families, our friends, our colleagues. And we are enormously proud when we rejoice in their presence. I believe, and I'm sure you share this belief, that we can only blossom to our fullest potential if, and only if, the environment is conducive, supportive, and nurturing. And our kith and kin are the people who provide this nurturing environment. So we thank them for that. Prof. Human, I trust this ceremony marks the beginning of the new chapter of career growth, a chapter to herald more groundbreaking research and innovations. We wish you nothing but the best and hope your scholarly adventure will always be rewarding and gratifying. And also congratulations to the Faculty of Humanities. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to express my profound gratitude to each one of you for taking time to celebrate with Prof. Human and the Northwest University on this special occasion. On behalf of the Northwest University, it is now a moment to invite Prof. Human to the front so that we can present a certificate of achievement as a professor. And please, Prof. Human, join me on the stage to receive the certificate. This side. The camera will not reach there. Will not reach us at the back. So this is a token of appreciation. And this is the certificate that should be in the office or at home. Okay, congratulations. Well done. Congratulations. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening.